Well, I guess I'm confident we're going to solve this case. So I'm confident that if he's listening in or she's listening in or whoever it is, that at some point I will be sitting across from you in the courtroom. And so about all I can say about it, but I'm confident we're going to resolve this case. I'm confident we're going to get an arrest, and I'm confident we're going to solve it. So
I'm sorry, I've got to take a stab at that.
I still get probably 25 and 40 direct tips a week right here, literally from around the world. We must keep our resolve for Libby and Abby to ensure that good trumps evil.
And catch a killer.
They're watching. And we'll meet them soon. We'll meet them.
This is the gate they left down. Okay, there's the crime scene down there. See how the ground's much more matted down right in here? I think you're right there as to what's happened here. See how the ground's much more matted down right in here? I think you're right there. I think you're right there.
You're fearful that that person or those people might have had a role in the actual crime itself?
I don't know any of that information, what you're asking.
Do you think there's anybody in this town that knew about this and kept their mouth shut?
I don't know. That would be speculation, really. I mean, what do you think?
It's a small town.
Sure is.
A lot of people who know each other.
Say that hopefully someone will be held accountable is important. So
sure
thank you.
Is.
It took investigators more than 5 years to discover an interview in their files with Richard Allen that led them to arrest the Delphi man for the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German near the Monon High Bridge. A month after Allen's arrest in the fall of 2022, Bradley Rosie and Andrew Baldwin were appointed to defend him and then booted off the case a year later and then reassigned.
The Indiana Supreme Court did not like that decision. They reappointed Allen's original defense team. Those attorneys believe Allen is innocent, and last week they requested an early trial, forcing the judge to set a new trial date within 70 days.
The accountability for the Indiana State Trooper lies with me. And you and I have had that conversation before. And accountability and or holding them accountable for their actions.
Take accountability for your actions. You can take all the credit in the world for the things that you do right, as long as you also take responsibility for the things you do wrong. It must be a balanced equation.
Why was it so...
That person, we're standing here right now. What do you say to that person?
Why? Son of a bitch. Why?
Thursday, October 13th, they noticed a lot of activity outside his house, a lot of cars that appeared to them to be unmarked law enforcement vehicles, a lot of men not in law enforcement uniforms, but in suits and khaki pants, all arriving at the house just before noon. They asked Richard and his wife to exit the home and to remain outside of the home throughout the day. They weren't allowed back into the home until around 11 p.m. that night. During that time, Richard stood outside. His wife sat in a van. He stood outside that van for several hours. One of the photos shows that we've exclusively obtained. Another photo shows him sitting in the van with his wife with the passenger door open for another several hours. At some point, as it was starting to get dark out, these neighbors noticed that the Carroll County Sheriff's Chief Deputy Tony Liggett arrived. He had a piece of paper with him. He showed it to Richard Allen, and they began a search inside the house. At this point, we don't know what any of that means for the investigation. Whatever evidence perhaps led them to today, and it took 12 hours all told, many of those hours seemingly waiting for a search warrant.
Wish TV has filed requests with the court for the affidavit to be made public. That is common with nearly every criminal case in Indiana. In Thursday's order, Diener went on to write, all public information will be available the second it exists.
So if the media had access to full information, the media wouldn't need to go knock on as many doors and try to find crumbs and nuggets of information. I believe the prosecutor's trying to do his job, and he and his office believe that the best way to achieve an orderly trial and proceeding is to minimize media scrutiny. And unfortunately for his position, fortunately for the people of Indiana, the public policy in Indiana is that the people, through the media as their surrogate, have the right to understand what's happening in a criminal trial so that the proceedings can be legitimate.
Law enforcement does not have the legal authority to stop vehicles or people, and even our planet.
There was hundreds of cars and vehicles and trucks, those generator trucks that keep the lights going, and they had the whole woods lit up. It looked like a football field out here.
Police tell us a volunteer searcher discovered the bodies off of the trail route in the woods. Logan says that searcher is his neighbor who noticed obvious signs of foul play after he found the girls.
Tuesday, he apparently went back there with another searcher, and they found them back there.
Officials searched every inch of Logan's 40 acres and the woods behind the nearby Morning Heights Cemetery, which is just across the stream from the Monon High Bridge, the last spot the girls were seen. Right now, the suspect or suspects who killed these girls is still on the run. After 50 years of living on the land, Logan says the girls would have had a very hard time traveling the wooded area on their own.
It's rough. Back on my properties here, there's a ravine on that. It goes way down. It's real deep. Ground runs like this, and it's real difficult to navigate.
I don't think Mr. Allen had anything to do with this. I honestly don't. He has no criminal record.
And you've handled death penalty cases. Have you ever had a pre-trial defendant treated the same way as Richard Allen?
Never. Never. In my 25 years or Scremen's 25 years have we ever had a murder client held pre-trial in a maximum security facility.
Richard Allen was escorted into a Carroll County courtroom in a yellow jumpsuit, a bulletproof vest, his arms bound to his chest and shackles on his ankles. There was a heavy police presence both inside and outside of the courthouse.
We have both been forced to immediately abandon employment, myself due to incarceration, and my wife for her personal safety. She has had to abandon our house for her own safety. What little reserve there is will fail to even maintain the original residence. Again, I throw myself at the mercy of the court. Please provide me whatever assistance you may. Thank you for your time in this most urgent matter. Sincerely, Richard M. Allen.
It's about Abby and Libby, their families, and this community, this nation, and even our planet. And we've got to work to regain that community's trust.
There were some fingerprints collected.
Do you know if those fingerprints belong to the killer?
That I do not know.
And same with DNA. You have DNA.
Yes.
Do you have his DNA?
Him, we don't know.
I also wanted to see if the sheriff would agree that he felt there were so-called signatures left by the perpetrator at the crime scene. But before we go there, let's become familiar with what a signature is. Jeff Reinick is an expert.
When they talk about signatures as it relates to a crime, they're talking about behavior or actions on the part of the offender that might be unique to that offender. I think signatures are very important. The FBI has a database called the Violent Crime Apprehension Program, and it invites local law enforcement to enter their violent cases in there with the intent that local law enforcement would have the opportunity to recognize similar behavior from an offender, let's say across state lines or even across the country. And so when you talk about signatures, that tells me that this offender engaged in behavior that was noteworthy by the investigators or by the crime scene investigators.
The former prosecutor of the case, Robert Ives, told us they existed.
He told us that, in his opinion, there are 2 or 3 signatures left by the killer at the crime scene. And you said you agree in part with that?
A crime scene will tell you a story. Just stand back and observe, watch, see what it's going to tell you. That's why evidence is important. Once you put all those pieces of evidence together like a huge puzzle, it can tell you that story. And so, yes, I agree with what Prosecutor Ives said, that there's things that existed there at that crime scene that when the day comes, put them all back together and here's the story it's going to tell.
Prosecutor Nicholas McClellan said those accusations are not only dramatic but false, and he also pushed back on the defense's theory that Abby and Libby were killed in a cult sacrifice.
In the memo, they accused the case's chief investigator, Sheriff Tony Liggett, of fabricating statements of several key witnesses in order to get a search warrant for Allen's home. Today, McClellan calling the entire memo, quote, colorful, dramatic, and highly unprofessional, defending Sheriff Liggett, saying, quote, he did not intentionally or recklessly omit evidence or lie about evidence to get the warrant. The prosecutor also addressed the defense's claims that there was not probable cause to obtain the search warrant.
Don't tell that midnight rider, tell the gambler, rounder, backbiter, tell the gonna cut him. You may run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time.
I lead by example, and when people want things done, they come to me to get it done. There's been a lot of attacks against my credibility, my integrity, my morals, and my ethics. Those things are all not true. Those are things that I take great pride in, and that's what's going to lead the Sheriff's Department to the future.
Will the double homicide investigation change?
Change in what manner?
Any manner. I mean, ramp up, move, whatever.
There are people that work this, as I said before. That is a top priority case for not just me, it's for the entire Sheriff's Department, it's for the Indiana State Police, it's mostly for the families, the Williams family, the German family. They are what drives us every day, and things are very positive. I'll leave it at that. Things are very positive right now. Nothing would change. We bring people in. We have help. Things are going well. Nothing would change.
With all due respect to Tony, and all due respect to Kevin Hammond, they were not qualified or trained to accept that responsibility of those 2 girls that got killed at the time. But you know what it comes right down to? Good old-fashioned shoe leather. You've got to make contact with people. You've got to follow up. You can't sit back and wait for something to come to you. That one piece of puzzle that's going to solve that case. You've got to work that case. You know, I've seen flip-flopping going back and forth here. When this case first broke, all I heard was, don't be forming any conclusions by what you're reading or seeing on the internet or on Facebook. Now it's flipped over to where if you've had any contact with somebody on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever, please contact us. What is it? What do you want? You can't be flip-flopping on these things. It's going to take a fresh set of eyes and somebody that knows what is going on in these investigations. Thank you.
Back to what Lee was saying, I think a new set of eyes is also important. There's many things that have happened in this case that people are confused about. There's been mistakes made, and I'm not criticizing them, but they're there. All of a sudden now, the age, height, weight, all that's been changed. What's supposed to be on there? But it took this many years to find out that that was made up, or that was a mistake. So there's a lot of things that need to be put in place and checked. And I think it's a new set of eyes with experienced people that have been on these kind of crimes before.
This investigation is far from complete, and we will not jeopardize its integrity by releasing or discussing documents or information before the appropriate time. Prosecutor Nick McClellan, of course, will share additional information about what we can and cannot say.
I think investigators constantly relook at evidence every day. Is there something I miss? Is there something else I can do? So I think that's constantly going on, but in my opinion, it's not my place to give direction to the investigators on how to run the investigation. I've directed all law enforcement to review all requests with me, all public requests before a response is given. That is simply to protect the integrity of the case. My main goal is to protect this case, to make sure that we don't do anything to jeopardize trying this case once we have someone arrested, and give you an answer if we can. An answer that we can give you that doesn't compromise, again, the integrity of the case.
What we have publicly addressed is people want to make the assumption that the voice saying down the hill it belongs to the person that's captured in the image from the cell phone. That's not necessarily the case.
Logan has been the focus of attention from day one. Inside Edition's Stephen Fabian interviewed him in 2017.
You just cannot believe this terrible thing that happened to the community and the families actually happened here on my property in my backyard. I was not home during the time that all this was happening. I was in Lafayette. Yeah. And I didn't get home till approximately 6:30 in the evening, and then the neighbor stopped to ask for permission to look back here for the girls. What have you found out? Anything?
It's a tough one.
Huh?
It's a tough one.
They screwed it up so bad that I don't think their bill's wrong.
What do you think they screwed up?
Huh? Their investigation.
What'd they do?
Concentrated on people who didn't do anything too much.
That's what you think?
I know it's what happened. They were going to pin it on me.
It's a shame what happened.
I'm not surprised. I thought this would happen.
What?
Not the murders, but when they put up those trails in the middle of nowhere, I said, you're going to have all kinds of drug problems and all kinds of crap from this. This will draw every deviant in the world to it.
I mean, we walked it a little bit. I was a little scared, because it was just us two.
Whoever did it long gone, they're not going to do it again. Not here, anyway.
Do you think they're from here?
I was part of some kind of family for a long time.
Did you really? Really? Why did you think that?
Because it's too damn close. They can't see the forest from the trees.
Right.
Looking right at them, but the person who done that could have been on the search team to look for him when they were missing.
Right.
I mean, they had people out here in my woods that night that they were looking for them. All over that place. They couldn't find him. Now, why did they not find him there?
Yeah, I find that surprising too.
And if that is a crime, you put hundreds of people in my woods and walking up down the creek, tromping all over everything, what are you going to find?
Right.
So they called up and said, hey, there's some clothing down there, go check it out. So he went down over the hill and he saw them immediately. And they're right out in the open. I don't understand why they didn't find them the night before. Why did it take them?
Do you think they were there the night before?
Well, according to all the law investigators, they were. No one thinks it's a dump site. You would have to. I don't know how you get there unless you make them walk there. How you gonna get them there?
Right.
I don't know. How do you make 2 14-year-old girls do something they don't want to do?
It's definitely not a cold case at this point. We continue to get tips in and they continue to work on. I mean, we've had over 26,000 tips in this case. It takes a long time to go through those.
And there's already some rumor out there that it's an overreach of government and all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how we've morphed over time?
Yeah.
We did a lot of work, all law enforcement agencies did a lot of work with trying to change the culture. We know what happened there. It wasn't popular at the beginning. And we know what happened. And like I said at the start of this, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
And I think about that. Well, I'm not sure how I could put a foot in front of the other.
A group.
Mine doesn't matter.
It goes
No.
so far.
Right.
And so, again,
Right.
Important, kind of unprecedented for the Indiana State Police to.
Oh my gosh, we heard you.
Yeah.
Because there's guys and gals all over Indiana that are pushing this information to us. It's scary, but we can kill just like anybody else can. We are not supermen and super ladies. Exactly.
And we found out, you know what? That why do they need to be exempt?
Yeah.
You know,
we die like everybody else.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
A line police officer goes to the very heart, to the core of the criminal justice system. 99% of your cases rely on the veracity of your police officer. If you cannot trust your police officer, you don't have a case. You don't have a criminal justice system.
The first question is when do you have an obligation to preserve? And the court has clearly said that if you have this distinct possibility of litigation, you have a duty to preserve evidence. And then the next question is, all right, who has to preserve it? This morning I was presenting a program on spoliation of evidence, the destruction of evidence. Spoliation meaning alteration, destruction, and even concealment of evidence.
It's important that we don't show our hand, quite frankly. We're not going to explain what we know about the killer. We're not going to explain some of the intricate details of the death of Abby and Libby. Unfortunately, one day we're going to have to, and that's going to create a whole other issue with family and friends and the community and the like. So from an investigative standpoint, I'm not going to talk any more about it.
The families rarely pass up an opportunity to keep their loved ones and such a horrible crime in the spotlight.
I had the opportunity to travel with the family of Dr. Phil in Los Angeles, California.
Yeah.
He was terrific. He was very welcoming. Wasn't sensation. We didn't sensationalize anything. It was. Here's what happened in remote, rural Indiana, and it could happen in any community in America. And that was a terrific experience. I think it was for the families as well. Then a couple weeks later, we went to the East Coast and talked with Megan Kelly. Same thing. I say give both of those examples, John, because of this is an opportunity for us to thank our media partners.
Yeah, absolutely. They were phenomenal.
Oh my gosh, they've kept this out in front.
Yeah.
There's been some criticism specifically of me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
For the amount of attention that we're giving to Delphi. We can't compare them; they're all different.
Sure.
And with nearly 50,000 tips on one case, that makes it different.
Absolutely.
So kudos to our media partners out there, and even our planet.
Interestingly, the state attorney general's office has declined to represent both Judge Gall and Carroll County. The attorney general's office typically represents government officials in appeals and legal matters. So it is noteworthy that the attorney general's office said, nope, we're not going to represent the government in this matter.
Now is our time. Now is our time, and we must acknowledge our system is not working. Our time is now to get really uncomfortable with each other, to take full responsibility for all of our citizens and for all of our actions, not just one part of the system, but everybody involved in the system. We must evaluate what we do, why we do it, and then be transparent with very objective results. We must establish criteria for evaluation and then unapologetically accept it. We must not live within a shadow of accountability. Rather, we must embrace a structure where we encourage and publicly discuss accountability, just like you expect from us. Judges and prosecutors alike should be perpetually accountable through objective evaluation, or at least an evaluation period, where they must explain their decision-making processes, especially for violent felons. Especially for violent felons. Prosecutors and judges, even unelected ones, have absolute immunity which means they cannot be held personally liable for their actions. We can and should do better. We have dark days ahead in this country. We must not turn our citizens off, turn our citizens against us because of criticism, because some of that criticism we have earned, and we own it, unless it's going to result in arresting or not arresting the wrong person at the wrong time for the wrong thing, and doing anything it takes, anything to keep children safe. That's not how it works. I tell you now, the unicorn doesn't exist. You can't have it. Just like you. Things no one can be, things none of you can be.
So I'm worried that this is just a red herring and that the message it sends is that they don't have a strong case.
And not let it ever be okay to us. Just another day. It can't be another day. It just can't be another day. We've got real problems, and it's this kind of a response, these kinds of families, this kind of a community that will maybe send a message, because this is all about accountability. The time will come when additional details can be released. But again, today is not that day. And not let it ever be okay to us. Just another day. It can't be another day. It just can't be another day. This is really important. While I know you are all expecting final details today concerning this arrest, today is not that day. Today's not that day. Just another day. It can't be another day. It just can't be another day. It could be today.
It could be today.
It could be tomorrow. But I can say that we're continuing to move in a very positive direction. Just another day. It can't be another day. It just can't be another day. I know that we have the human element. We have a very solid science element. We're using every capable process that we have from a scientific perspective, as everyone would expect us to, and we will continue to do that until there's nothing left to do.
Would that include DNA?
It does.
Okay. Was DNA found at the scene?
It includes DNA.
The concern he voiced was that if the witnesses' names are not maintained confidentially, that the witnesses would be harangued by the media, and that maybe there could be safety implications for the witnesses or for members of the court staff. And that means, if that's true for the charging records, then that's true for any future hearing, that's true for any trial. And it would be shocking to have the entire trial happen behind closed doors. I don't think there's any precedent for that in Indiana.
When is enough enough? At what point are we going to say, stop, shake up the Etch-a-Sketch, we've got to clear the slate. This isn't working. This level of accountability is not working.